Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. Before we get started this week, just a quick heads up that the Techstars Web3 Accelerator is now open for applications for the class of 2024. Jump on over to techstars.com/accelerators/web3 to share with your Web3 founder friends or to apply directly. On the show this week, we've got Eva Lawrence.
Hi, I'm Eva Lawrence. I'm the head of EMEA at Figment.
Figment is a leading provider of blockchain infrastructure, providing staking solutions for institutions. Eva Lawrence has a diverse career across law, trading, business development, and strategy. Eva has been in the crypto space since 2018 and was previously COO of Arcane Crypto, a Nordic-listed crypto platform. She has 8+ years of experience in finance, primarily at Morgan Stanley, where she was head of EMEA flow trading for Securities Lending after working in FX Prime Brokerage. In addition, Eva is a UK qualified lawyer with experience in digital assets, securities, funds, and financial services. In this episode, we get into Eva's evolution from a legal mind into institutional trading and her slow burn crypto awakening before jumping from the institutional world into the great wide open of crypto back in 2018. We also step through her role at Figment and look at the importance of staking now and into the future. All right here on Money Never Sleeps. Eva, listen, great to have you on the show.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
After it was 2021 that we met.
Right.
And that was Graham Rodford. So shout out to Graham. And let me show you what Graham sent me. Okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So just recently, coincidentally.
Wow. I didn't get one of those. An Archex hoodie.
Yeah. A lovely Archex hoodie. Thank you, Graham Rodford, for that. That was awesome to get. And it was just, hey, we're there at Token 2049 in London. And Graham said, hey, Pete, you got to meet Eva. And glad that we connected back then and stayed in touch. And so wonderful to have you with us today. So thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So listen, I had a deep look back into your background and how things have evolved for you. And it's a really interesting path. You started out studying law. You then went on to Merrill as a negotiator, then Rosenblatt as a trainee solicitor for a couple of years, and then on to Morgan Stanley. And it seems like how you spent your time became a lot more diverse when you were at Morgan Stanley. Do you think there was anything specific that happened during that time to push you from what were legal roles at the time and into more diverse leadership roles?
Yeah. So, I would say that I was always slightly more interested on the business side. So when I started as a trainee solicitor, I was focused on corporate law, funds, financial services, but I always wanted to dig a bit deeper into what was going on in the business. So how did certain decisions impact the business? Why a company was asking for a particular restructuring or looking to sign a particular deal. It was always the business side that interested me more. So when I went to Morgan Stanley, I was able to get involved more in understanding the businesses that I was working for. So FX Prime Brokerage was the first area that I started off in. And so negotiating agreements for the clients in that division, you start to understand the markets, you start to understand the division itself, what drives P&L. And I think that really pushed me along in my career. And I also saw that over time, there was a real conversion between regulation, law, and the financial markets. And I think that applies to tech and crypto in general as well, right? They were once seen as two very separate areas. You had law here, and then you had everything else on the other side. And law, even to me, always seemed as very static, slow moving, and then finance was much faster paced. But over time, I was more and more aware that the two areas were continuing to become intertwined. And so that gave me the push to say, hey, maybe what you have learned from a legal perspective, understanding regulation or understanding how to read a contract and the impact of certain decisions, that can translate more and more onto the business side and how strategy and decisions are implemented.
That's interesting, because I'm thinking about the time that we were probably in the midst of this transformation of Eva. And it was around about the time AIFMD the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive, was going into implementation, and there were impacts on prime brokerage. There were impacts on how assets were reused. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but that you're so right. And that people had to think a lot more about the legal side, and that the financial markets were becoming more complex as a regulated thing because of what was happening with hedge fund regulation at the time. And right smack in the middle of it in prime brokerage with Morgan Stanley is the best place to be figuring that out. Was there a certain point in all of that where you had a bit of a crypto awakening, where you figured it out?
Before I had a crypto awakening, I had a finance awakening. So I moved from a legal role over into trading, and from FX Prime Brokerage into Securities Lending. So at Morgan Stanley, I was trading equities, covering hedge fund shorts, trading ETFs, corporate bonds, and then ran their European flow trading desk for stock loan. And I went from the full transition of understanding the legal side to now, okay, I'm managing a book, I'm understanding all of this from a trading perspective. And it was great. It was very interesting. There was a lot of change going on in the markets, as you rightly point out, in general, whether it's equities or otherwise. But you also notice that a few things are broken, right? Whether it's settlement procedures and timeline and the settlement cycle in general, or whether it's just quite simply how trades are executed and how archaic it can be. It was a time where the firm was starting to look at AI and machine learning, and okay, how can I train a machine learning model off the basis that trader A has approved these 4 trades for these criteria? There was definitely development around that area, but when you lifted the lid and looked under the hood,
I know.
You were like, wow, okay, this is still pretty outdated. So I think it took a while for me working in the trading side of the business and getting deeper into the securities markets and understanding all of that to then suddenly start to say, isn't there a way we could be doing this better? And then the crypto awakening happened almost really by accident. It wasn't that I was like, I hate finance, this is terrible, I've got to leave and make the world a better place. But it was more just gradually over time, you see, okay, there is some really cool things that people are working on, whether it's, for me, it was first Ethereum and then Bitcoin I was looking at. Okay, smart contracts are super interesting. Let's go down this rabbit hole. And then that led to looking at Bitcoin and, digging deeper there. So I think rather than an aha moment that just happened overnight, it was this gradual, okay, there is something happening here. Let's pay attention. Let's dig a bit deeper. And then you see the opportunity and you think, okay, maybe I want to leave finance to pursue an industry where I see innovation and opportunity.
Yeah, I hear you. Exact same thing for me. It just little reverse. It was Bitcoin first, then Ethereum, probably around the same time. Because it was Bitcoin, the white paper, where I opened up and saw page 2, and I'm like, that switched to flip, or that flipped to switch. And then the ETH white paper came out, I think 6 months later. And yeah, saw smart contracts, saw stable coins, although not referred to in name. And same experience looking under the hood of so many different businesses while I was in traditional finance and saying, this is just all backwards. It's all still so backwards in terms of the plumbing down there. When you jumped out into the wild as an advisor in 2018, there was some momentum that would have built up into that point where you decided to do that. And what was that like back in 2018 when you left Morgan Stanley behind and said, I'm going to go out there and start working with startups?
I'm sure people thought I was insane. Who leaves their job at a leading investment bank, running a desk, running a team to go and play with magical internet money? Like, you lost the plot. But I think sometimes you just have to go with your gut and go with your conviction. And you know that any change, working in finance for 8.5 years, as I had, or almost 9, that no change is going to happen overnight. So if you were to sit around saying, okay, well, I'm going to wait until Bank A is fully on board with crypto, and then I can continue my finance journey, but diversify into crypto, you know that you're going to be waiting years and years. Yeah. So you have to go, okay, even though it may seem a little crazy, like I feel like it's the right move.
Yeah, definitely. I know. And again, similar experience, but I digress. When you jumped into Arcane Crypto back in 2020, and that was a role that you were in when you and I met at Token
Exactly.
2049. Talk me through that. What was the trigger point for you joining them, and what were some of the learnings from that experience?
Yeah. So I was involved in some of the portco companies of Arcane. So I knew the team there quite well. And the journey that Arcane were on, or was starting on at that point, were to take the company public. It's now listed on NASDAQ. And so for a crypto company, it was and still is not the norm. It wasn't something that was expected of or easy to do as a crypto firm. You were considered to be sidelined, and not listed companies would be crypto companies. The two didn't interconnect. But it was an exciting journey to work with the team to take Arcane as live, as listed on NASDAQ First North, as COO of Arcane, now known as Arcario. And so that was an exciting journey. And it was also, different time in the markets and in the world in general, right? Like everyone else, I was working from home majority of the time,
Yep.
halfway into 2020. So yeah, it was an interesting time in general, but I think it was a real learning curve that the business had so many different facets, right? There was exchange, brokerage, hedge fund, and a well-known research division. And so it was great to be able to get involved in so many different parts of crypto and look at how all of those different areas could be used to push the industry forward.
I gotcha. That makes sense. And all along this way, this journey from Morgan Stanley through into working with startups and then into Arcane, and obviously before you jumped into Figment. But did anyone ever push back on you and say, hey, listen, this isn't going to work out for you? And, considering where you are now, how were they wrong?
Yeah. So, I think when I looked at moving from legal to trading, even when it was suggested to me, I wasn't convinced to begin with. When they said, do we be interested in this role, on the trading desk, I thought, am I interested? I'm not sure. But there were definitely people who thought that a lawyer shouldn't become a trader. These are two separate careers and you can't go from one to the other. And that lawyers would make, too restrictive, too rigid of a trader, right? So there's definitely people who push back on that because some people just want to fit everyone into a certain box or a stereotype and have everyone in a team with the same educational background or view on life. And then you end up with a team of people who are a carbon copy of one another. You don't want everyone to have the same educational background in your team. You want to have diversity of view, diversity of thought. So I think their knee-jerk reaction might have been that it doesn't make sense as a transition, but hopefully their view in the end was that was wrong, that you need this diversity of view and thought. And there is also something to be said for bringing the logic and the methodology of law to trading to some extent anyway. So I think that actually something that maybe some people looked at as a negative in the beginning actually became an edge for me.
Okay. All right. I get that. And with your move to Figment, that given your life experience through 2022 before you moved, that it seems like such a natural fit, right? And just to read off the Figment tagline, that the complete staking solution for 250 plus institutional clients, including asset managers, custodians, exchanges, foundations, and wallets to earn rewards on their digital assets, right? This feels like an analogy for the last 10 years of your career. And can you tell us about Figment and why the role that you came into with Figment is working for you, right? It looks like from the partnerships alone that the ones announced with Market Vector, Crypto Finance Group, and Komenu, it seems like your expertise on the partnership side, that's really front center with what you're doing. How does this all work for you?
Yeah, if we start with Figment, we are the leading institutional staking provider. And we work with everyone from asset managers, exchanges, custodians, hedge funds. And so we have to really understand the needs of those clients and partners. And coming from banking and working at one of the world's largest investment banks, it really given me an understanding of what it means to say we provide an institutional offering. You already know what those clients need. What are their expectations in terms of level of service? how are they looking to communicate with you, with the company as a whole? So I think what we're very good at doing at Figment is understanding the needs of those clients and then focusing on how we bring the checks and balances around security, reporting, risk management, so those client types are used to and have teams who are responsible for internally, bringing those checks and balances to the crypto industry and to staking without stifling innovation. So for example, we have internal expertise that mirrors the counterparty setup, whether it's the head of regulation and strategy that we have, the CISO, head of risk and coverage, our excellent customer success and technical success teams. So all of those teams at the asset manager, at the custodian, they have people that they can speak to and say, hey, can you explain this to me? Can you walk me through this? Or can you support me on something? And I think that's what it means to have an institutional offering. And so that's what Figment is very good at.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, Eva, staking is something that is commonly misconstrued by folks out there and that may have heard of it and been aware of it and think they know what it is, and others that just haven't heard of it before. Can you tell us a bit about staking and what it is and why it's important in the digital asset industry?
Yeah, of course. So staking, as we refer to it at Figment, is non-custodial protocol staking. So the assets remain with the asset holder, the hedge funds, the asset manager, or their custody provider. They're not transferred to Figment. There's no transfer of title. But what happens is they're used to support the blockchain. They are used to then, as a result, earn rewards. But it's not DeFi, it's not lending. And I think that's where sometimes there is a bit of confusion, is sometimes staking is used as an umbrella term that brings in other things that are not staking, which is obviously confusing for everyone, but we like to simplify, I think, crypto as an industry. So as soon as someone latches onto a phrase, we use it for all manner of terms and then don't really think about the consequences. But for us, for Figment, what we are looking at is solely non-custodial protocol staking.
Okay. And did you see a shift from 2022 around this time last year when the Ethereum network moved to proof of stake from proof of work? Has that shifted things for Figment?
Yes, definitely. It's opened up the market to a whole range of institutions, asset holders that weren't previously able to stake their Ethereum. And when you look at the participation rate, I think ETH at the moment is around 22% and rising, but that still lags behind other networks, which are around some of the more widely adopted networks, say around 60 or 70%. And ETH itself has a more distributed holder base. So we're going to continue to see that to grow, and that's exciting.
Yeah, it definitely is. And one of the things that I got quite excited about a few weeks ago and that I've been watching over the last couple of years is just the spot Bitcoin ETF journey that we've all been on, and the SEC and everything that's happening there. And obviously a spot Bitcoin ETF itself won't do much for staking because Bitcoin isn't generally a staked asset, but Ethereum is. And a number of other crypto assets after that are definitely staked, and that it's only going to be the first one, the Bitcoin spot ETF, that the big institutional players launch, and then they'll move on to the next ones. Do you see a rising tide lifts all boats impact that will happen and will push things along for those providing staking solutions like Figment when we do get these spot Ethereum ETFs that start coming to market?
Yeah, and I think it's positive for the industry in general and is the right move that the industry wants to see. But also, I would say almost the staking piece is slightly ahead of the game. If you look at staked ETH, there continue to be products that are launched in terms of staking ETPs. That is something that the staking industry and providers themselves of structured products are already looking at. So there are many ETP providers out there who are looking at staked ETPs. We actually recently launched a staking rewards rate indexes alongside leading index provider Market Vector. And it comes to the point that data is really important here. So I think that sentiment-wise, Bitcoin spot ETF will have a great impact on the industry. But I think there's also been a lot of work done in the background around data and building these ETP, ETF structured products in the industry in general that sometimes, I guess, gets a little bit less coverage.
I'm glad we're having this conversation. I got a call last week from someone who was also at the conference that day back in 2021, who's a good friend.
Right.
And he was asking me specifically around staked ETPs, which are staked exchange traded products. And he's someone that I should probably connect you to because it could be an interesting conversation to take forward. So I'll do that.
Sounds great. So I'll tell him that now we have to talk about this because you have made it so.
Yeah, exactly. Good. And I know that you were recently on an Asian tour in Singapore, in Korea, at a few different conferences, Korea Blockchain Week, and then there's Token 2049 in Singapore. Any new insights from talking to folks down there, things that are making you think about the market differently?
Yeah, it was a hectic but positive trip. We're seeing the market in Asia grow alongside EMEA. There is a huge opportunity in the region, and there's a feeling of optimism and excitement that I think that you don't have, say, in maybe the US right now. Maybe some people in the US will disagree with me on that, but I think the general feeling there was one of, okay, we are building, we are growing, and whether it's the retail side or the institutional side, there is a real potential. You're already seeing some of the exchange volumes in Asia skyrocketing, especially when you compare them, say, to maybe US counterparts. So I think it's kind of, okay, wow, where will this go? It is the viewpoint from the region. So we're excited to see what's next. We have Hyde in the region in Singapore this year. So I think it's exciting for everyone across the industry.
Did you bump into any old friends that you hadn't seen in a while?
It was surprising how even in Singapore, you had half of Europe, half of US, some of Canada, South America, everyone was there. So I think it was another testament to the conference is how many people had flown in, right?
Oh, yeah.
At least 10,000 were there for the event. I would say maybe another 10,000 who were there for side events, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, that's where all the business happens, is at side events. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I saw it was Lou Kerner from the Crypto Oracle Collective.
Yep.
I saw his email that came out after that say why it was such a great time, why it was such a great place to go. And it's exactly what you said, is that everybody just flew in for this. And there was a shot in the swimming pool at the top of that triple tower thing with a big platform up on top that looked like it was a pretty cool event. But yeah, it's sad that I missed it, but I'm going to try to get there next year. Having been through your life's journey, right? There's going to be things along the way, Eva, that you've learned and experienced that become a deep part of your MO. And I've heard others refer to this before as your earned secret, something that you know to be true through your own life's work and experience and knowledge that others don't know or believe to be false. Is there anything that you can highlight that's been helpful to you as an earned secret?
So earned secret, or perhaps even maybe less commonly held view, the saying goes, it takes a village. I think in terms for career-wise, it's actually the opposite. It just takes one person. It just takes one person to believe in you, to support you, to be on your corner, act as a sounding board for ideas, to really propel you along and for you to be successful. So I think that's an important earned secret, both for you to remember personally and also to remember when it comes to others. Who can you be that person for, and how can you support others? And remember the impact of that piece of support being in someone's corner, what it could have on them. And you don't underestimate that.
Absolutely. Is there a single person who would have been that support for you?
Yes, I think that changes over time. So it's not always the same throughout your career, but generally at each pivotal moment in my career, I've had that one person in my corner, and it's made a massive difference.
Yeah, either you do or you don't. And when you do, it's helpful. Like you, I would have counted on a number of folks through the years that, you're right, it's different at every point in time, every intersection that you get to. It's always good to find a friend there. Listen, I dug back into the tweet machine
or
Oh,
the X
God.
machine as it's now called.
Oh, God.
But I'm going to use this as a lead into the final question. All right.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. Now, it was only from June of 2022, so it's not like the Wayback Machine or anything.
I
Okay.
feel like I need to go back and wipe some of these.
Okay. Like most Brits in crypto, I will spend today torn between discussing the crypto bear market and the Three Arrows Capital contagion, or the one-day heat wave in the UK that, as usual, no one can cope with. I'll probably pick the one that annoys the most people. I never found you, even though we only met once and chatted a few more times after that, but I never found you to be an annoying person.
Really?
Eva.
It's one of my aims and goals in life is to annoy as many people as possible.
Awesome. Is that just baked into your...
It's part of being a Brit, right? You have to be self-depreciating. You have to complain about the weather a lot, as reflected in that tweet. And yeah, it can be a bit annoying.
I got you. No, we'll figure that out someday. But the thing we like to say here in Ireland is that obviously the weather is always something to perhaps talk about. And it's generally very much talked. That's the first thing that people say, that you bump into. It's, hey, it's nicer today than we thought it was going to be, or it's whatever. And because in Ireland, there's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Yeah. So, but listen, that was the one thing that, we close this podcast every time, Eva, with this question of what is one thing that people would not expect to know about you. And I dug in there and perhaps might have found something, but is there something that you can point to that would be surprising for people to learn about you?
I wish I had something really exciting to say at this point. Some world record that I hold, some ability to have recorded the highest skydive in history, or, I would even take the ability to eat the most jelly beans in one sitting.
Okay.
It's something like that. Maybe that's a side project that I should be working on. It is a world record that would maybe be slightly depressing, but also maybe to some people impressive. But
absolutely.
I don't have any of those in my closet. I would say be surprised to learn, maybe keeping on the Brit line. I am working in the sidelines to improve my French, which is not very British of me.
Okay.
And so I'm having weekly lessons to try and improve my French. I'm not sure how much success I'm having. Maybe ask me again in a year's time when we can re-record this podcast, and maybe we can do it in French. But that's what I am secretly working on in the sidelines.
Perhaps in a year, there will be those automatic voice translators, and that you could hear me in French, even though I'm speaking English.
Yeah, little earbuds.
Yeah. I saw Bradley Cooper, and this popped up on my Instagram feed last night, on some French talk show recently, speaking fluent French.
Yeah.
And he said that something like he will try to keep it going. He tries to practice. There's folks in the US that practice with him. And the commentator said, none of them have ever been in France.
So what you're telling me is I need to call up Bradley Cooper and ask him if he'll practice French with me.
There you go. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And he said he nearly gave away the address that he was living in Paris, or I couldn't even pronounce it. AIX?
Aix-Provence.
Aix-Provence. There you go. And he said, no, I won't share that, but that's where he spends his time. So if you want to go hang out there, you could probably track him down and have a chat with him about in French.
Great idea.
Okay. Listen, Eva, thank you so much for joining us on the show. This is a wonderful chat, and really looking forward to hopefully seeing you soon, like we were talking about before we started recording, in London.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Wonderful.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Eva Lawrence for opening up her mind to help us figure out why she does what she does. You can learn more about Eva and Figment on figment.io and on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie. If you like what you heard, please leave us a rating and or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as it helps others to find the show. Thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early stage startup investor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3, and I lead the Techstars Web3 Accelerator. There are plenty of links in the show notes on moneyneversleeps.ie on how to get in touch, so don't hesitate to reach out. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!